listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my program, the Intrepid radio program, right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. At the same time, come on over and watch the video simulcast over here on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. And you can join the live chat room, which is just starting up now, but gets pretty lively throughout the course of the night. And so, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your time to come over here and spend it with me, listening to the things I have to say, either teach, lecture, pontificate, soapbox, whatever it might be. I appreciate the fact that you're here. And go out and spread the word. If you like this show, spread the word and invite other people to come and listen. See what they think. And let them join in as well. And speaking of joining, if you're at my YouTube channel tonight, hit the little join button below the video window. And you can see 3 different ways that you can become a member of this program, the Intrepid radio program. And there's a cost involved, of course. It's $2 a month, $5 a month, or $15 a month. And that shows you levels that you can come in and experience and some of the perks that you will get as we continue to grow this channel. So again, thanks for being here. How has your day been? It's now Friday. Welcome to your Friday. Happy Friday. And it's the end of the week. For me, it's the last full day that I will be home with my wife and children, and, which is bittersweet in its own sense. Some people might jump at the chance to say, oh, I can be gone for 2, 3, 4 months away from my family. Oh, what a wonderful, joyous separation that will be. And for me, I've been away from my family at different times in my life. Every time I've gone to Egypt 4 or 5 times now, while I've been married to my wife Rainey, I've gone for usually no less than 3 weeks to 4 weeks. And so I'm gone the better part of a month 4 or 5 times over the last 10 years. And so I get my fill of being away from my family. When I'm there, I think it's going to be an exciting adventure. And usually by the end of week 1, I'm like, boy, I miss my kids and my wife. And the same thing when I went 2 years ago and did some work out of state in Wyoming and then into Utah. I was gone from September and I came home finally in December. So that's only September, October, November, December. And then 4 months I was gone, which doesn't seem like a whole lot of time, but it did at the time. I came home for 2 weekends during that period. And I missed my family. One thing I did notice, and maybe you guys can attest to this too, to a certain extent, that whole adage that absence makes the heart grow fonder, I think it did some of that. When I went out to Wyoming and it started by going to Texas for a month, and then I went to Wyoming and to Utah. Rainey and I were having some rough spots, and it was like, fine, fuck off. Good to see you go. Good to be gone. But that ended very quickly when we realized how much we love and need each other. And our family loves and needs each other. So my little girl, Ellery, the last few nights she usually is the one that would rather watch TV and fall asleep to it in her bedroom. But, and trying to coax her into listening to a story is a little tough. Because I like to read to the kids at night. And she's been coming to me before the radio show saying, Dad, can you come up and read a story tonight? And I'm like, as soon as the radio show is done, I'll come up. And that's 10 o'clock here. And she's usually right down here and saying, are you done with your radio show now? Can you come up and read? And so we read last night. And she just sits and schnoogles up and wants to hear some stories. And so we read again last night. I think that's because she knows the distance is coming. And now I can talk like this, like I'm talking to you now. I can talk this way on YouTube to my listeners, but I can get on Messenger or Skype and I can have a conversation, interactive with my family. I can see them, they can see me. And we did that most every night, at least every other night when I was gone a couple of years ago. So we'll do that again now. That helps. Could you imagine? Remember 200 years ago, the distances that people would travel? Like the song, very sad song, Kilkenny, Ireland. Kilkelly, Ireland. And it's about a young man who goes away to America to start and pave the way to bring his family over. And he's gone for years, trying to traverse to where he's going to go, to clear the land, to build and start planting. And everybody he knows dies. He finds out the girl he was going to marry died within a week after he had left a few years ago. And he gets these letters. And so this song, very sad song, is about this letter of leaving home. Imagine what it was like back then. Imagine what it was like if you lived on colonial America and you ventured out into the wild to stake a claim and to try to build a life out there. There was no way to communicate with anybody. And now I can pick up my cell phone. I can be sitting on a rooftop and pick up my cell phone and call my wife and kids and have a video conference. I could go back to where I'm living, turn on my computer and have video conferences every day. We can see each other. At least we've got that. And we all know this is for what I would consider a more noble goal than just going away and having an adventure. I can make an adventure and a fun time out of anything that I engage in, that any of us engage in. We can make a great life and a great adventure out of anything if you approach it with the right mindset. My purpose for going out, as I've stated, is to try to get us ahead financially, to try to get into that land and build that house we want to build. Things like that. And so there are goals attached to this. And it's not going to be the answer all to everything, but it's going to give us a very big head start by doing this. So I'm willing to go out away from my home and family where I don't want to go. And I will do that joyfully, cheerfully, happily, knowing that I have the ability to put us ahead a little bit. And that's the whole reason for taking the next 3 to 4 months to try to do some things that could get us out far ahead of where we are right now. And I also will have the ability to continue writing while I'm out there, to continue doing my artwork. This isn't a punch-the-clock 9-to-5 job. This is a job that will pay benefits and rewards based on the amount that I put into it. If I have to take a day here and there and do work for somebody, if I have to say, okay, I'm going to go do this during the morning hours and write and stuff during the afternoon hours, I can do that. That's the beauty of it. I'm going to do this radio show from there, as I've mentioned. There's going to be a few-day gap in here. There will be no Sunday morning show, unless I'm in some kind of position to do something live from my phone while on the road. It's going to take probably into the middle of next week before we get things back up and running, so I'll be out for a few days. So this Friday show is our last show until we get reestablished out of state in a new setting, in a place that's not really my own. And so we'll get that set up and we'll get going. And so this is what life is like now. And you know what? This isn't a lot different. The only thing different about what I'm doing now than, say, what people had to do 100 years ago, sometimes 50 years ago, maybe 200 years ago, is that now we have the technology to be more in touch from the distance. And that's what makes this thing work very well. So, I don't know if any of you have ever been in that position. I know Morgan Snow, if you're over there in the chat room yet, she mentioned that her husband had to do a lot of travel during those days, and during some days of their relationship, and that there was long distance involved. But what I rely on is the fact that Rainey and I have a history. We have a family. We love each other. All of those things matter, and the ability to get back here physically is easy nowadays. The trip I'm taking now down to Louisiana, which is 1,200 miles away, What would that take if there were no set roads and I had to drive a wagon team or ride a horse? It'd be weeks. Right now I can make that trip in 17 hours. And so, at most, 15 hours, I think. So, in a vehicle. So there you go. We're not all that far departed. The world has become a smaller place, and we have the ability to communicate, which is good. Unless the grid goes down, unless there's an apocalypse while I'm gone. And then they'd make a TV series on how this guy, during an apocalypse, a zombie apocalypse, is looking for his family and traveling south and all the adventures that it takes 3 seasons to find them. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Now, today, I have our topic I've been talking about Gnosticism, about tipping the Bible upside down and shaking it out a bit. I want to make this disclaimer one more time, is that I in no way am looking to insult or be insensitive to anybody's religious sensibilities or their spiritual dictates of their conscience. I am presenting an idea that says perhaps what we have been taught is lacking in reason or lacking in thinking, needs a bit more skepticism, needs to be dumped out and sifted through and gone through. That's why I do this. That's why I think the way I think. As I've said many times, I don't want to believe something. I want to know something. Know something is worth my belief, worth putting my faith into. I don't like blind faith. I don't like somebody taking a piece of paper or a book and throwing it in front of me and saying, this was said 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. It was written that this is what you should believe because there is this loving God that's out there. You know, those things, you tell me that and hand me that piece of paper, I'm going to go, you're going to look at that and you're going to go, well, I've got a piece of paper saying this. What is it that proves that to me? Somebody will say, the amount of faith that you express is going to prove that to you. When you exhibit faith, faith will make itself known and solid. Well, here's the big question. What should be the convincing factor that I should put my faith in something? They always said, don't try Jesus, accept Jesus. Well, what if you don't believe the story? What do you do with that? How do you prove to yourself that what's being taught to you is the right thing to follow? So I think sometimes even somebody like me who has been to years of Bible education, years of biblical training in the church, years of Bible college and seminary, years in the ministry, hundreds of thousands of hours of study, why would I come to the conclusion that I got to stop and step outside the box and dump that all upside down and sift through the contents again? Because sometimes we stop and realize that we have put our faith in something that was told us was so, yet we found that when we step outside the box and look at it, we go, wow, that's like believing these wild myths of, animal gods who flung themselves in the air and their afterbirth became the swath of the Milky Way. Things like that. We look at mythologies and we kind of laugh at those, yet we have our own mythologies and our own faith and theological circles that we tend to believe. That God created man out of the dust of the ground, that he removed a rib to create the woman to be a partner for him, and so on and so on and so on. That might be a true story. I don't know that it's not true, but does science controvert that? That's a good question. And where does science fit into faith? Where does history fit into faith? Those are the big questions that I ask, and hopefully this series gives you some insight into that. Now, before I get into talking about that, if we even make it to that tonight, there was, and I don't know that anybody here who follows me on my social media or my Facebook sees any of these posts that I put up, because they're things that are put up by friends of mine, and I comment on them. Then there are people that are their friends that I don't know that will come in and criticize me. How dare you? Who are you to come in and comment here? Oh, well, this is my friend's post, and it's a public post. I've known this person for 20 years. Are you saying I don't have a right to comment? Even though my comments might go against what you say they should be? So I have run into in the last couple of days. Now, mind you, this is strictly in the category of social media communication. It might be partially important because it's a friend's post, and I've talked to my friends. Where it's less important is getting into these diatribes back and forth with people who have no intent of looking for good conversation or good modes of debate or good modes of discussion, but must attack you from point A because they know that you don't think the way they think. And that becomes, for me, over the months and the years, that has been the kind of thing that gets really tiresome and wearisome. So I had a friend who put up a screenshot of somebody else's post. And this post read this way. This is verbatim. What the fuck is wrong with Americans who aren't on board with free healthcare? I'm Canadian, and I don't care that I pay extra taxes so a little boy in Alberta can have open heart surgery or an elderly man in Nova Scotia can get the heart medication he desperately needs. It's called taking care of your people. I'm glad I pay so that people can have a good quality of life. It's called being a decent fucking human being. Boom. That's what this friend of mine posted that somebody else had said. And I've seen this before too. It's been circulating like a meme almost. It's an infographic now. And I want to tell you some of the responses I saw in here. And Rainey responded to this because some of our old friends, people we know, some of them she doesn't know very well. She knows them because they've been my friends for 20 years. Maybe have never even encountered each other face to face, but they know of each other. And so Rainey made a couple of comments in here because people were talking about health care. And where do you get health care? And let me say for the record here, this may not make logical sense to everybody, but I'm going to tell you this right now, is that I have a particular point of view on what the government should pay for, what the federal government should pay for versus state governments. So when it comes to health care, I believe there should not be anybody in this wealthy country that we have, even though there are lots of people who are extremely wealthy and at the top of the heap, lots of people who are extremely impoverished and at the bottom. We aren't a socialistic country. We can't raise everybody or lower everybody to the same level. We have a free market. We have capitalism. We have freedom to pursue. But there are people who get stuck and lost and fall between the cracks. So I've always said, healthcare is something that I think nobody should go without. If you have the ability, in my opinion, to pay for your health insurance at whatever level of deductible you want to pay for, then you should be paying for that. You shouldn't be somebody who gets free health care. If you are somebody at the other end of that spectrum who can't hardly afford to keep food on the table, the lights on, and keep a cheap housing for you and your kid or kids, you are somebody I believe should be covered, you and your children. There shouldn't be a dime have to come out of your pocket when you can hardly afford to live. And then there's, of course, the huge swath of people in the middle. Some people can make $80,000 a year and still want to have their health care for free. I think somebody making decent money or a good middle income level, what is good middle income these days? $50,000? Here in the state of Wisconsin, if I wanted to put my family on public health care, you have to make, as a family of 5, a husband and wife and 3 kids, you cannot make more than $59,000 a year and still be qualified to get free health care. Now, $59,000 to some of my single friends out there who were talking in this thread was like, oh my God, $59,000. I've never made $59,000. But they're a single person. They aren't married. They don't have kids. And that might seem like a lot of money to them. So, which tells me that a lot of middle American single people make a hell of a lot less than $59,000. Yet they make a little too much to qualify for free health care. So what do you do in that gap? What if somebody makes $20,000 to $30,000 a year, but you've crossed over that poverty mark for your state, and so therefore you cannot qualify for state health care? Those are people who get lost in the mess. They have one medical crisis, and you know what happens? They are out for the rest of their life paying medical bills. And they only make $20,000 to $30,000 a year to begin with. So, my thinking is this, and there's lots of gray areas, lots of room for argument and opinions here, and so on. My thinking is there should be no one in these United States, a nation as amazing as ours, as free as ours, as rich as ours. There should be nobody who is a citizen of this country who should fall through those cracks. There should be, and we've got everything in place already. It's just whether or not you qualify, whether or not you make the right dollar amount, whether or not, and so these things exist. And I know when Rainey came into this post, she came in arguing, not even arguing. She was stating, well, you know, I've been on Minnesota State Care. We've been on Wisconsin State Care. And it's not that difficult to get approved for that, she said. You have to make certain amounts of money. I came in and I said, you know, it's not that difficult. You might have to spend a few hours going through the application process. You might have to produce your tax forms that show this is what I made last year, or this is what I've made over the last 6 months in order to qualify. People said there's so many hoops to jump through. If the only hoop you've got to jump through is to show what you've earned and what your history of earning has been, to me, my opinion, some people might think that's a huge hoops to have to jump through. I think that's pretty minor hoops to have to jump through in order to get 100% coverage in your health care. We were on Wisconsin State Health Care when I had my open heart surgery. Now, I had a friend of mine, I've mentioned this before, who I didn't know for 6 months, but was in the hospital the same week I was getting the same surgery. 10, 15 years younger than I am. He's not 50 yet, he's in his mid-40s. But he had the same heart condition I did, the same kind of heart attack, the same surgical procedure. He didn't have health insurance. He ended up getting a bill for over $100,000. Me, because I have a family of 5, and we live in Wisconsin, and we were on Wisconsin State Healthcare because we made less than $59,000. We qualified. That was a great help to us. You know what I got billed for the same surgery my friend got billed $100,000 for? $7.35. That was my copay. That was for open heart surgery and a week in the hospital. And all the medications and the treatments. So, when you look at that, you say, that was a pretty good situation. I think I made, the year I had the heart attack, probably $30,000 for a family of 5. It was a rough year financially. But, at the same time, I qualified for state health care, and thank God I did. Because we had that, and I had that surgery, and it didn't put us under. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when I come back. I want to talk to you about social media and the way people talk to each other on social media. So we'll come back in a couple minutes. You sit tight. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sitting tight through that break. This is Scotty Roberts. Welcome back to the second segment of the Intrepid radio program. It's right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's at ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. At the same time, come on over and listen to the Odyssey stream while you're watching the video stream over the video simulcast at my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. And while you're there, you can join the live chat room, which is going on right now, thick and heavy and full of great people and great comments. So come on over, join the conversation. You can also join my channel over there, join this show by hitting the join button. Look at the 3 different ways you can become a member and join up. See if it's worth it to you. So thank you for being here. Let's continue on where we were. I was talking about this whole idea of now we were talking about healthcare. We were on that issue, and because that's what the conversational topic was about, and it was posted by a friend of mine who posted something that talked about how Canada and Canadians feel about their healthcare, which is socialized medicine. And so without getting into the thick of discussing is socialized medicine good or bad, is our system of medicine good or bad, Rainey said to me when she saw that, she said, I just wanted to say, and how long did you have to wait to see your doctor? How many lines did you have to stand? And so on, so on, so on, the way the argument goes. And somebody, again, I'll read for you, if you missed this in the first segment, a friend of mine posted this. It's almost like a meme now. It's an infographic that's been traveling around that somebody else wrote. Somebody named Natalie Ann wrote this. And she said, what the fuck is wrong with Americans who aren't on board with free health care? I'm Canadian and I don't care what I pay extra taxes. So a little boy in Alberta can have open heart surgery. Or an elderly man in Nova Scotia can get the heart medication he desperately needs. It's called taking care of your people. I'm glad I pay so that people can have a good quality of life. It's called being a decent fucking human being. Hi. I'm doing radio, you know. This is for me for when I go. Come here. Come here and say hi to everybody. This is Ellery. Here, we'll tip that down a bit. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Oh, you're going to be hidden by the microphone back there. There you are. There's Ellery. Come over here. All right, a little familial interlude. My daughter just made this coffee mug for me. What does it all say? It says...
Go all the way back to the
all the way there. It says, I love you. Dad. Ellery. And it's all written backwards. How did you do that? See, look. It's all written backward. Thank you for that. I will take that and I will drink coffee in that. You can go put that up. Okay, let me finish my show and then I'll be out. All right. There you go, folks. Little familial interlude. And like I say, I'm doing this only because I need to do this, not because I like leaving my family. And I think it's starting to hit my kids that I'll be gone for a while. Well, let's go back into this. I read what that post said, and my friend repeated that post. She didn't make any comments as she did so. And people were coming in to start liking it and so on. And somebody said, that's capitalism, baby. And the kind of responses that come in, everybody's going to say, no. So right away, somebody's disagreeing. This person said, that's capitalism, baby. Somebody said, no, every other Tier 1 capitalist nation is universal health care. What other Tier 1 capitalist nations have universal health care? The reason we don't have it is because the 50th Congress made it legal to shield health payments provided by blah, 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 blah. Somebody wants to get into all this stuff that nobody knows anything about how to respond to unless they've already studied all these ins and outs. And this is somebody who's making their statements. Somebody else said that sounds like the problem created by capitalistic policies. Oh, so it's capitalism in America that creates that problem. Somebody else says it was actually created by World War II and just extended and made preeminent during the 50s and so on and so on. And somebody else said, so it sounds like what you're saying is that during the Reagan years, capitalistic policy weakened our overall healthcare system. Somebody else says no, because it's not intrinsically capitalism that's the issue. And so on and so on and so on. So this argument on capitalism went on under this post. Somebody else in a different thread underneath this post said it's bold to think we don't care of people in our community. We just do it in a different way, and we've had the choice and freedom to do what we want with our money. I have donated lots of money to people I know who need help for surgeries and other things. I know where the money is going. Somebody responded and said, the man who picks and chooses who he deigns deserving of care. So, you can't just have enough money to help other people. Now it's if you do that, you're just cherry picking who you want to care for, rather than giving it to the government and letting the government do it. And on they go, on they go. Somebody else said, I'm sorry, I don't want to pay for someone who thinks they need to run to the doctor anytime any little thing happens, because it's free. There are a lot of insurance options out there. That's somebody's opinion. Now, my wife came in and made her first statement. Rainey came in and said, most states have a health care plan for those who need. Look into it. Each state, of course, is a little different, but it gets the job done. Now, much later in this thread, there are people telling me that all my wife did was come in and crap on other people's personal experiences. Now, the first thing she said is there are options out there. And this argument goes on. Somebody said to somebody else, there are programs out there to already help people who need it. Things may vary state by state, but there are programs and insurances. And somebody else insults him, then somebody insults the insulter, and somebody says, imagine thinking we have the money and ingenuity to put people on the moon, but not to put poor people in a doctor's office. It's a false equivalency, but that's the kind of arguments you see in this. My friend who put up the original post said, Rainey, yes, but my state insurance doesn't cover most of my medical needs. So I'm thankful it helps with smaller issues. But I'm also going to have a mouth I will have spent $50,000 on. Oh, teeth surgery. And it would be nice to not have my dental health be the reason I don't own a home. Now, I understand that reasoning, and I understand my friend. At the same time, I'm missing molars in my mouth. You know why? Because I couldn't afford to get the crowns put in. At the time I had to have my insurance covered having the teeth pulled, but it wouldn't cover a root canal and a crown. So, you know what? I had to do without. Is that right? Is that our system, letting people fall through the cracks? So you listen to how even my friend responds to this, is that I have to make a choice on whether or not I want to put $50,000 into my teeth or put $50,000 into a home. That's a valid point to be made. The big question is, should that then be covered by insurance paid by taxpayer dollars? That's where the question comes, and you have to say, look, let's separate ourselves from the emotional argument and look at the nuts and bolts of this and ask if that's right. And then we can add in the emotional arguments. Somebody else said to my wife right there, so why then do these states say if you work you don't have need? Premiums are outrageous and deductibles cost even more. All to get basic standards of care afforded people in other countries, like Canada, without going bankrupt. I have insurance in case something catastrophic happens, because it's next to impossible to get care if you don't. It takes 1/3 of my income in premiums, and I'm scared to use it because the bill is a complete mystery until it arrives, and then I go broke trying to pay it before they send me to collectors. This is the American healthcare system for you. Take and take some more for substandard care and claim it's the best in the world. Now, we do have the best healthcare in the world, the best system of healthcare. We may not have the best implementation of free healthcare for people in need, but there it is. Now, somebody came back and said to my friend, the issue is that most medical insurance doesn't cover most of your face, including your mouth, hearing, vision. All of those generally need to be covered under different plans because being able to see, hear, and eat aren't considered medically necessary in America. And while that's a bit, a bit cynical, it's probably pretty true. Somebody else said to my wife, an old friend of mine of 20 years, her first response to my wife's first post was, "Wow, your comment reeks of privilege and not of understanding the system you are condemning." I didn't hear my wife condemn anything. As a struggling mom, I have had full-time employment with benefits and paid more OOP for my insurance-covered healthcare needs for my child than I have since I lost my job and I need to be on state health insurance. The cost of some of my kids' absolutely necessary medical appointments were more than my monthly paycheck. But I guess fuck my rent, right? Oh, and fuck groceries too, LOL. I can just use the wages from my full-time job to pay for the astronomical fee of taking my kid to the doctor. But that is neither here nor there, because that isn't my current situation. It's the one I have already lived through and dealt with. Now, my situation is I'm seeking a job. But the catch? The last 2 jobs I've had, I had to beg off hours and pay so I could stay under a certain income level so my kid wasn't kicked off of state-funded health care. Mind you, I would have made barely over the legally allowed minimum, just enough to make us ineligible, but nowhere near enough to be able to afford to pay for our own health care plan. And as these were private companies, they did not offer health insurance on their own. So again, it would have taken every penny I was making working full-time to even be able to say we held insurance, just for paying the privilege of having the insurance, never mind the cost of actually needing to use it. So I've had to choose to remain poor, remain underemployed, just so we don't drown ourselves in medical debt that would leave us homeless. Now I'm trying to find a job where we hopefully don't have to make that kind of absolute choice. It sucks doing this on one income, with a kid that has many extensive medical needs. But please, she says to my wife, go on about how universal health care is some horrible taboo. Just be sure you look down to where I'm standing so you can see me from all the way up there on your high horse. And before you come for me, I have worked in medical billing. I have worked processing insurance payments. I have worked as a financial counselor, helping people navigate their medical needs versus their ability to pay for them. The system we have now is absolutely borked. It only works if you have money. Now, mind you, that diatribe I just read you came off of my wife making this statement. Most states have a health care plan for those who need. Look into it. Each state, of course, is a little different, but it gets the job done. That's all my wife said, to generate that response from an old friend of mine. A lot of condemnation in that for things my wife didn't actually say. Somebody else responded to my wife and said, "You're so wrong. And Rainey Roberts, my boyfriend can't afford the current public options. I'm disabled and had to rely on the hospital who did my gastric bypass to sponsor the removal, medically necessary, skin PCA to my daughter, or from my abdomen. God, that was hell. My boyfriend is my full-time PCA and half-time PCA to my daughter. We can't survive without him. Most days I fall at least once and my daughter passes out at least twice. I pick my glasses from a special drawer. Any tooth that needs a crown, pulled. Why? Medical assistance and Medicare don't cover crowns. I'm down to 10 teeth. Thanks. My daughters are terrified something will happen to their hearing aids. They can only be replaced every 5 years. They can't hear. No, we need a PCA independent contractor. We need a single-payer system so my boyfriend can get medical and dental care, cause PCA independent contractor. We needed some medically necessary surgery. Yes, it was actually becoming a life or death issue, is covered. We need it so my kids aren't terrified they can't hear. You realize my mom waited 2 years after she knew I needed glasses to get them cause as a single mom. She had to get glasses for my 2 older brothers already. Of course, not covered for glasses, just exams. My dad wasn't covering us medically at the time. She addresses my other friend who gave that very long post and said, I've been in similar shoes. Just to clarify for everyone, I'm disabled. Both my kids are disabled. Even with Medicaid and Medicare, not all my kids' medically necessary bills are covered. You ever pay for spinal surgery to save your daughter's life? You know that? Screw you. And this is in all caps now. I didn't choose this. Why should you get good health care and not me and mine? I worked for 17 years. Now, mind you, this all came off of, I'll repeat it, my wife making one simple comment. Most states have a health care plan for those who are in need. Look into it. Each state, of course, is a little different, but it gets the job done. And these are the kinds of responses she's getting. And then I'm told later on that all my wife did was come in and crap on people for their personal experiences. This is the public discourse that's out there. Somebody else, now my wife came in again, and she addressed my friend of 20 years who had made this long post, and she said, this is where your privilege shines through. I have state insurance. You are too judgmental to see. Then she addresses the other person. You also are too jumpy and missed it all. You judge based on looks as well. And what she told me she meant by that was, we look like we have a lot of money to some people, the kinds of things we're involved in and the things we do, and we don't. And so she's saying, you're judging us based on the way you think we are. I have state insurance through Wisconsin because we fit into the income guidelines. And I don't need to give you a sob story as to why we need help. You both need to step off your poor me high horses. Maybe it's time to cross the border if your state doesn't cut it. I have a sliding scale fee at my dentist. And by the way, that's not through state insurance. Sliding fee. Our dentist has a sliding fee for people based on their income levels. I also cannot afford dental, and yes, I understand having them pulled versus crowns. That's for the rich people. I have 23 teeth left, my wife says. What are you supposed to have, 32? I don't even know. How many teeth are we supposed to have in our mouth as an adult? I think you should relax, take a chill pill, check your own privilege at the door, and realize we're all human. We all have issues, and you shouldn't be so damn judgmental. I had a decent experience with state health, and you don't think that doesn't mean you need to cut me down for it. Sheesh. Okay, that's the way my wife types. So people are starting to attack my wife because she said, I've been on state health care. Go check it out. It's available. And people, in essence, are calling her down for being judgmental, for being privileged, so on and so forth. And this went on. This just kept going. Somebody said, I wasn't cutting on you. I was just telling you about my boyfriend and how things work for us. Then somebody else came back and said, P.S. Screw you. I raised 2 disabled kids while being disabled. I'm proud of my girls. I'm proud of what I did. There is no poor me in there, just facts. Somebody else told my wife that don't you get that the system is broken and it's garbage. Somebody else said I should relax. No. What privilege do you think I have? Getting $0 in unemployment because I've exhausted my benefits? Having to borrow money every month so we don't end up on the street? Spending hours applying for jobs and still being unemployed because I can't find one that allows me to bring my son to his multiple medical appointments per week? Needing to pick up and choose what groceries I get to ensure he has the diet he needs? And maybe it works for me, but most of the time I eat pasta or make a huge batch of chili that will last me weeks because the rest of my money goes to my son? What high horse am I on? The one where I know about these things because I'm living them, or the one where I cry and feel overwhelmed at trying to navigate the system over and over and over? Or perhaps the one where I sit and stare, utterly exhausted at the walls, or out the window trying not to drown surrounded by all my privilege? Let me know. Until then, I'll be over here waiting on tenterhooks for your wisdom. And Rainey responded and said, I don't need your sob story. Chill out. Yes, chill out. And of course, she got attacked for that. It's a conversation that was ongoing. My friend of many years said, it's not my sob story, Rainey. It's my life. Plain and simple, cut and dry. I cry because I'm overwhelmed, not because I give a rat's ass that anyone else has to say about me or mine, least of all somebody I don't know. Now, this friend of mine of 20 years doesn't know my wife. She knows who she is, but they don't know each other. And somebody else came into my wife and said, laugh it up, Chuckles. You live in a make-believe world with your blinders on. Which my wife does not, by the way. I finally came in and said, I'm curious to know how you believe Rainey reeks of privilege. And so this is where I entered the conversation. And this thing goes on and on and on. And somebody said, I said to this other friend, you and I have been friends for 20 years. Sometimes much closer, sometimes more distant, as time seems to do when we're on different paths. You may not know my wife, Rainey, but you know me, and we've always been friends, until politics, that is. The only place you and I have ever had a difference is when politics and ideologies somehow crept in between for you. You and I never talked politics until the last couple of years, and only then in social media posts. Yet you built walls based solely on who I voted for or how I express my political ideologies. That's just the nature of how things are out there these days. So I accept it as being what is. I find it sad that old friends have to struggle for civility. I find it sad that friends cannot find ways to respect differences and do what President Biden called for, be unified. And I happen to know this old friend of mine voted for Biden. So this argument goes on and on. People attacking phrases, people attacking LOLs, people attacking this, attacking that, and it swiftly, it didn't even degrade into something negative. It flipped a switch to negative. Somebody said, I said to this one person, Rainey isn't laughing at your situation. She's laughing at your statement that her claims are baseless and heartless. And I said, have you not yet come to that point in your life where common sense sometimes needs to supersede the way we feel? And that person comes back and says, common sense says I shouldn't pay 1/3 of my income for premiums on insurance that don't cover most of the costs of necessary medical care. And on that point, I have to agree with this person. Cost of health care for people who don't make a lot of money is astronomical. And if you're not raped by the bills at the end, you're raped by the payments that you find out later don't really cover anything. So, this person went on and says, how do you know what Rainey is laughing at? Are you a mind reader? Did you have a private side conversation about this? You think it's appropriate for her to demand we allow her to have her opinion unchallenged, but she gets to laugh at ours? Or tell us our life experiences are made up because they aren't hers? Which is not what happened. But I responded to that and said, she's my wife. She was sitting right next to me. I don't have to be a mind reader. She told me so. I know precisely what she was laughing at, and my friends should give her the benefit of the doubt before jumping in her shit. Further, your statement sounds awfully judgmental between the lines. Am I gauging you correctly, I asked. And that conversation went on and on and on. I should have bailed out of that a long time before that. But I loathe leaving a conversation like that so people who are mixed in with a bunch of people that are my old friends can say, mic drop, he had to run away with his tail tucked between his legs. Maybe that's a pride thing for me. Part of that is me going, no. You don't get to say that and not be accountable for what you say. Same for my wife. Same for me. You might even disagree with what Rainey had to say. But Rainey is not a person of letters. She doesn't get up and eloquently say things. Rainey just kind of says, here, I'm going to bash your headlights out, okay? Watch this. That's the way Rainey converses. That's the part of the charm of Rainey. Oh, and I will say, I agree with the whole insurance thing. We have been poor. We have been never wealthy, but we've been richer than we are. We've had the roller coaster ride. There are times we've been on state health care, and it doesn't cover the needs that you have. I understand that fully. Look at my smile. I got a smile, see? But did you know? Back there, I'm missing 2 molars on both sides of the top. So I've got 4 teeth out of my mouth. Why am I missing those teeth? Because I couldn't afford to have them drilled out with root canals and crowned. I didn't have 4 times $900, which is, well, it was basically just under $4,000 to have 4 crowns put in. So having the root canals didn't help. And by the way, 2 of them I had already had root canals in at 20 years ago. And they just busted out after a while. So I live right now missing 4 teeth on the top of my mouth. Thank God it hasn't affected my smile. I still have a smile, but if I smile broad enough, you can see the gaps. I have what's called the poverty gaps in my teeth. That's because the insurance we're on, it's medical and we're covered. Like I said, my heart attack, my open heart surgery was 100% covered. Well, except for that pesky $7.35 I had to pay in a copay. But dental is different. Our dental isn't covered the same way. It's considered aesthetic. So I get that. I understand that. But we have found a dentist that will work with us on a sliding scale and make payments on things. Now, I just had the teeth pulled a year and a half ago. So I've had a year and a half with 4 less teeth in my mouth. Hopefully, knock on wood, the rest of my teeth survive. So one of these days, I'll make enough money and I'll probably have implants put in. But that comes out of my pocket, which is okay. But for people who are too poor to do anything like that, too poor to even afford a crown, I believe those people should have coverage that helps them. Why should you, just because you don't make enough money, have gaps in your teeth, as opposed to being able to get help to cover that? Granted, it's our taxpayer dollars that is paying for that. It's my taxpayer dollars. I would gladly pay a little more tax to have a little better healthcare system for people. I get that. But I also want it to be done correctly and done right, and that's a whole nother debate. So what this is all about is not so much complaining about what people said and what was done, but it was talking about the way people act on social media. And there was so much more to this, where it got so personal and so stabbing and so ridiculous, and I just didn't make it that far. So folks, we're done. We're out of time. So I will be back sometime early next week. So you guys have a good weekend, have a good night, and we'll see you in a few days.